Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the earnings call to discuss operational and financial performance for Q1 FY22 of Precision Camspark Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator pressing star then 0 on a touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Karan Shah, Full-Time Director of Business Development. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for being a part of the Precision Camspark's Q1 FY21-22 earnings conference call. Mr. Ravindra Joshi, our whole-time director and CFO of the company, is on business travel today and therefore not able to join this conference call. However, Mrs. Arohi Devasari from our accounts and finance team is attending this call for finance-related questions. In case any detailed questions on finance, please email us your questions at cs@pclindia.in and we shall provide you answers in a reasonable time. I will start with an overview on the auto industry and then get to our company's performance. India and the world have witnessed and is still reeling under one of the worst pandemics in the recent times. This, along with the global semiconductor shortage issue, has caused far-reaching effects across the automotive industry. And while we might see some light at the end of the tunnel with respect to global vaccination drive, as well as efforts by the industry and OEMs to restore supplies of semiconductors, it is difficult to predict when things will be back to normal. We at PCL are taking great care of our employees and facilities during these difficult times. Over the last year, PCL has donated 50 lakh rupees to the Prime Minister Care Fund and an additional 50 lakh rupees to the Chief Minister's Relief Fund, Maharashtra. In addition, the company has directed most of its current year's CSR spending towards COVID relief by providing local hospitals and care centers with essentials such as ventilators, BiPAP machines, oxygen concentrators, providing food and essential goods to the underprivileged, and completely renovating and restoring the crematorium in Sholapur, amongst other activities. Coming to our company, the Precision Group, with its 3 group companies, which are Memco, MFT, and EMOS, has now truly become a global company with manufacturing facilities in India, Germany, and the Netherlands, with a global automotive OEM in our clientele list. It is because of this global presence that our company has not only been able to tackle this slowdown, but in fact post good performance on a standalone as well as consolidated basis. The parent business PCL India has stabilized over the last year, posting consistent results. The company has clear visibilities to utilize capacities at its foundries as well as machining division, as programs from key customers, which were delayed, have now come back on track. PCL has been awarded several new businesses over the last 2 years, which will even help us better utilize the assets. As informed at the 29th annual general meeting of the company, the Precision Camspark Limited has won new businesses from Ford USA, Renault Nissan India, Kia Motors India, Tata Motors, Fiat of Europe, Jaguar Land Rover, and Royal Enfield over the last 2 years. PCL would be either supplying fully machined or casting camshafts to these customers. In summary, PCL India as a parent company continues to enjoy healthy margins and is poised for growth in the coming years. Coming to Memco, which is based in Nashik, the company had seen a dip in sales due to the automotive slowdown, the COVID pandemic, and chip shortages. We would like to believe that the worst is now behind us and we hope for growth in the business in the coming year. Our objective at Memco is to diversify our product portfolio as well as customer base. Our group company MFT, based in Germany, has been stabilizing the business during these difficult times. The company has installed a new management at MFT, which will help steer the company in the right direction in the coming years. In summary, the group's automotive component business is now well diversified in terms of product as well as customer base, where no single customer contributes to more than 23% of revenues. Now coming to our e-mobility business, EMOS, based in the Netherlands, the company has registered significant growth in business over the last 2 years. Since we have completed the 100% acquisition of the company in July 2020, we have focused the business on adding new customers and technologies to the company. While the traditional business of retrofitting medium and heavy commercial vehicles continues, we now look forward to an exciting new journey as we partner with niche OEMs across Europe to provide them with ready-to-assemble electric driveline kits. EMOS caters to a wide variety of applications, including waste collection, airport buses, mid-mile and long-haul transport, road sweepers, cranes, reefer containers, and more. Over the last 1 year, this company has retrofitted a mid-sized passenger bus in India into a 100% electric bus. All the initial integration work as well as thorough testing is being done in close association with the Automotive Research Association of India based in Pune. We have been able to localize more than 60% of the electric driveline on the very first vehicle itself. We now expect this vehicle to outperform the original vehicle in terms of horsepower and torque while providing a range of over 180 kilometers on a single charge. Coming to the financial performance of the companies, I'd like to start with the standalone business performance of Precision Camshafts Limited, which houses the camshaft business. Total income for Q1 of FY22 increased by 119.87% YOY to rupees 111.26 crores. EBITDA for this quarter increased by a strong 220% year-on-year to rupees 27.7 crores. The total income and EBITDA have increased significantly year-on-year as the world was going through one of the most challenging times in Q1 of last year due to the pandemic and lockdown. The PBT for Q1 FY22 is 18 crores and the profit after tax is approximately 14 crores. The EBITDA margin for this quarter was 24.9% and PAT margin was approximately 12.6%. Total revenue contribution from export was approximately 54% and the balance came from domestic sales. Coming to the consolidated business performance, the total consolidated income for quarter 1 FY22 increased by 101% year-on-year to rupees 217 crores. Consolidated EBITDA for this quarter increased by almost 200% year-on-year to rupees 31.5 crores. PAT on a consolidated basis was approximately 7 crores. EBITDA margin for this quarter on a consolidated basis was 15% and PAT was approximately 3%. Just to give you a high-level revenue structure of the three group companies, revenue at MFT for this quarter was approximately 45.9 crores. Revenue at Memco for this quarter was approximately 10.9 crores, whereas revenue at EMOS in this quarter was approximately 49.9 crores. I think this covers the summary of the business as well as the financials. And with this, I would like to open the floor for question and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants will answer while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment to ask the question queue itself. The first question is from the line of Shagun Jain, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. I wanted to know what is the capacity utilization what we have reached in all these businesses against the installed capacities which we have. I would be especially interested more to understand from our EV mobility business as to where are we at the capacity utilization levels at that particular business. My second question would be what is the total capital deployed across our EV mobility business and what are the plans for the near future in terms of additional capital deployment there? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I can answer your capacity utilization numbers for the standalone business for the last year, which is FY 2021. Due to the pandemic situation and the lockdown, we were at approximately 60% utilization in our foundries as well as machine shop. However, this utilization will increase given the new businesses that I have just spoken about during the call. We are not able to give you a forecast for what the rest of this year looks like, but needless to say that it would be better than what it was last year. As far as the capacity utilization of the e-mobility business, we do not define that in terms of capacity, as most of the we have enough space and enough manpower to kind of do more numbers of retrofits as well as kits. Therefore, it's very difficult to define the exact capacities at the e-mobility business. However, space requirement is almost not there at EMOS, because EMOS is very much into the assembly process, and most of what is done there would be requiring working capital and not significant capital investment. So in the last, since we have owned the company, we have about 8 million euros or about 60 crore rupees of working capital invested into this business.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants who wishes to ask a question may press star and one now. The next question is from the line of Nimish Shah from Fortune. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Karan. This is Nimish Shah.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for this brief introduction on Q1. The two questions I had was that how does the order book look for the EMOS business? Number one. Number two, as you said that you're attempting to replicate the EMOS business in India and you are awaiting ARI certification. So obviously the cost which one spends in Europe, for the EV thing, those costs are not sustainable in India. Then how would you be able to manage that?
Sure. So I think your first question was regarding the order book.
Right.
We are unfortunately not in a position to give you the exact number, which would be a futuristic number. So we're not able to share that. However, I think we have a very clear visibility for orders up to the end of next year.
Okay.
So there is no issue on the order side of things. I think it's going to be an exciting journey over the next 2 years to fulfill these orders.
Okay.
So I don't think there is an issue on that front. Coming to the India side of things, one of the key, like you mentioned, the key factor for making this an affordable, ROI-friendly solution in India was to localize quite a lot of the driveline in India. And like I said, we have already, in the very first vehicle itself, we have localized 60%, which has brought down costs significantly compared to our European counterparts. But I think the way forward is that we need to get towards an 80-90% localization, as well as fit for function drivelines which are made for the Indian conditions, which we are aiming towards. So I think we would be in a very competitive space once we get to that point.
And once you get the ARI certificate, you would be ready to roll out this in how many months' time? No,
this is the first vehicle which we have done.
Right.
It's a demo vehicle based on a mid-size bus platform.
Correct.
And this we would be testing all across Maharashtra over the next few months.
Okay.
For reliability, etc. And then we are in talks with several customers in India to do variety of different vehicle retrofits for them.
Okay. So you don't expect any traction issue. It means once you are able to do it, you feel you will get the necessary orders and all that.
Okay. Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sudhir Pariyar from Consult Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, Karan. Good afternoon. Many thanks for this opportunity. I'm sorry, my question may sound a little basic, but I was just wanting to understand the strategy that you are thinking of adopting for the e-mobility business as far as India is concerned. So would there be a B2C approach in terms of retrofit, or would you be thinking of a B2B approach? discussing with the fleet owners or something like that. Could you throw some light on what strategy you're planning to adopt as far as EMOS is concerned in India?
Yeah. Yes. So the initial strategy will be towards looking at fleet owners, end customers, state transport authorities, 3PL kind of players in the Indian space who are looking to convert their existing fleet of vehicles into electric. And given the vast experience of EMOS in Europe on converting more than 600 vehicles up to date, we have that experience and we have the know-how to do a wide variety of vehicles and not restricted to one type. We have done in Europe retrofits right from 5 tons all the way to 55 tons of gross weight of the vehicle. So we have that experience. But yes, the initial strategy will be this retrofit. But I think longer term, we do see a business model developing just as it has developed in EMOS in the Netherlands, where we are now tying up with several OEMs across Europe to provide them with modular kits which they can use into their own vehicles. So the vehicle then is electric from day one and not a converted one. So that would be the longer term objective for India as well.
Okay. And would you require like ARAI certification or something like that for you to actually roll it out even to the fleet owners or the private guys?
Yes, I mean, it would require homologation. Every variant or every type of vehicle would require homologation. But this is a fairly standard process that we understand and can do with ARAI.
Okay. So would that also mean that, once you retrofit any of this medium or heavy commercial vehicles, okay, the warranty or any other thing that the vehicle comes with, that does not get repelled or whatever, right? I mean, that maintains.
To some extent, yes.
Okay. Because, there were issues earlier with vehicles as far as CNG retrofit was concerned, that if you fit a passenger vehicle with a retrofit which was not approved, then the warranty was not applicable. So these kind of things will not crop up as far as EV retrofit is concerned.
No, but in the EV retrofit, we are changing essentially the entire drive of the vehicle, including the engine, transmission, exhaust system. There is no exhaust system. So we're essentially changing everything. So we obviously, as the provider of this driveline, would provide the back-to-back warranty or guarantees with our suppliers, which we will pass on to the end customer.
Okay, brilliant. And what kind of drive time would be there with a single charge, in terms of kilometers?
I think that's one of the USPs of our business model, where we are able to customize for your need. If it's a intracity kind of short loop vehicle, we can reduce the cost significantly and provide a vehicle that only requires 50 kilometers on a charge. Whereas if you are requiring it to be an intercity, we can also provide 250 kilometers on a charge. So it depends on the use of the customer.
Okay. And how much, so now since you have localized 60% of your manufacturing capabilities, how much would the cost work out to broadly a range for this kind of retrofits on intracity or intercity? Just for me to get an idea.
It's very, very, very difficult to answer that question at this point of time. I think we'll get back to you once we have more clarity on that.
Okay. And as a company, when are you expecting any meaningful revenue contribution coming from this part of the business in India?
In India, I think it would be the next 2 years, 2.5 years or so. I think we should not look at this as an immediate addition to turnover significantly. But if you look at, I think, just to summarize this discussion on e-mobility, I think our focus, because we are based in India, it is to enter the Indian market and be part of the EV ecosystem here in India. Our focus right now is very much on growing the European business because that's where the demand is, that's where the markets are stable, that's where the infrastructure is available. And you can see that where this company has grown from a small turnover of about 40 crores 3 years ago to about 140 crores this year, and more planned for the coming year. So our focus is very much on where the demand is. And of course, we would like to be first to market or, being part of the first companies to market in India, but this will not be the key focus.
Okay, okay. And a last question for now, Karan, on this front is, as far as EMOS is concerned, would it be possible for EMOS to actually procure, sort of components from India, thereby reducing the cost or, having some traction on the margins for the European business?
Yes, of course, of course.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you very much. I'll come back in the queue if I have any further questions on this.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nakshita Mehta, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for clearing out a lot of things on EMOS. So my question is again a little bit on e-mobility. Is that the other infrastructure for e-mobility, that is, power charging and all of that, is still a bit of challenge in India, right? So how are you planning to, combat those challenges as well when you plan to introduce e-mobility in India? Are there any plans on that front?
No, I think it's a very valid question, which is something that I answered in the previous question also, where we said that our focus is where the market demand is, where the infrastructure is. I think India, we're still a little bit away from being in a space where we can provide we as a company are unable to provide all of the infrastructure that goes along with the vehicle itself. However,
right.
we are tied up with charger companies in India that provide both slow charging, AC charging, as well as fast AC charging. And if a customer requires chargers to be set up in their facilities, then we can certainly facilitate that. And we, of course, long term would rely on the larger players in India who are, planning to set up public charging infrastructure across our highways or across petrol stations and things like that.
Right. So, as you said that, you're focusing on where the demand is, or where the infrastructure is. So, can you say that it will still take more 5 years for e-mobility to come in India? I mean, the buses and the trucks that you're planning?
Hard to put a number, but yes, it would take time.
At least take time, right?
Yeah,
okay. So my next question is regarding camshaft. So your camshaft business is also doing pretty well, right? And you are the only one who has 4 technologies, the 4 types of camshaft, as I can see. So what is your plan on, expansion in India regarding camshaft, or any capex that is in India? What is your next 5 years in India expansion plans?
No, I think we have a fairly good market share in terms of camshafts in India. We continue to grow along with the OEM partners that we supply to. I mentioned in the opening remarks that we do have a lot of additional business that we have got from a variety of customers, which we will plan to fulfill over the next years. I think the only capex that we have planned for the next 1 or 2 years, about approximately 50 to 60 crores, which will be all going towards induction hardening of camshafts, which is required for all the new platforms that we would be doing for Maruti in India.
Correct. Okay.
So, Arun ma'am, if you have any other thing to add to this from finance side, please.
No, nothing from finance side. Yeah. So another question is, I read there is 10% revenue increase from MFT and MEMCO that is expected, right? So anything going on that front, as in there's a 10% revenue increase expected. So what is that about?
So I think we are obviously looking at growing all the businesses which are part of the group company, and there are efforts going on to diversify the product portfolio at MEMCO and MFT. There is capital expenditure which has been done at MFT, and we're ramping up production there. So yeah, I think it's both these companies are derived demand which comes from what the automotive OEMs do, and so as these companies grow, we would like to grow with them. I think that's the only part there.
Okay. So my last question is, you said that capacity was 60% utilization due to COVID. So can you throw a light on before COVID, what has been your capacity utilization on average, if you can just...
I don't have those numbers in front of me. Arohi madam, are you on the line? If you can share those details.
Yeah, sir. So we will do one thing, ma'am. We will come back to you through the mail on your question. We will give brief details on the capacity utilization before COVID.
All right, all right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, all the best for your e-mobility in India as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is China from Green Portfolio. Please go ahead.
Hi, Karan. Hope you're doing well. The first question I had was regarding EMOS. If you look at EMOS's revenue, it has grown by 86% Q on Q, and we're seeing the contribution to consolidated top line increasing from EMOS.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, can we expect this trajectory to continue, maybe reach 30 to 40% in the next 2 to 5 years? And along the same lines, from my understanding, the EMOS's order pipeline, as you mentioned earlier, I believe it is quite tight for the next 2 years or until FY23. And how are we making efforts to improve the execution in terms of new recruits?
Yeah. So, the first question that you asked, unfortunately, I can't answer futuristic looking figures. So I'm unable to answer that question exactly. However, I think when I said that the order book is full for this year and the next, we have a very good outlook towards how this business is growing. And we do have a very good management, a local management there who we support to grow the business, whether it is in terms of additional people, additional talent, additional facilities, or any kind of infrastructure that they require, and we are always there to support that. So we don't see a major challenge. I said in one of the questions, it's going to be an exciting journey for the next years. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Secondly, in this quarter itself, Edenred, one of customers of EMOS, have partnered with big names like Lidl, Bridgestone, Oatly. Would it be safe to assume that the powertrains is only assembled by EMOS, or is there any other companies providing these drivetrains to Edenred?
I can't comment exactly on the end customers and the use because of confidentiality with the customers. But yes, we are developing and supplying drivelines to very large and key customers in Europe, including some of the names that you mentioned. But I can't tell you exactly.
No issues. Thank you. And lastly, this is just a macro question. We're seeing, I think you mentioned this earlier in the conference call itself, we're seeing GM, Ford, and many automakers halting production due to semiconductor shortage. If you look, the lead time for these has increased from 6 weeks to all the way to 20 weeks. And we're seeing semiconductor manufacturers grappling to ramp up this capacity. So what is the likely impact on our operations? And as of now, are we seeing any order cutbacks from OEMs?
Yes, this is a real challenging situation, not just for us, but everybody in the supply chain in the automotive industry. All the larger OEMs have been hit by the semiconductor shortages, and for sure we do have an impact of that on our monthly numbers that we supply. But I think what most OEMs are hoping is that by the end of this year we have more or less, this is just me speculating, nobody knows for sure, but by end of this financial year that we have more stability towards the semiconductor shortages issue, and most OEMs would like to make up for all of the lost revenue and lost sales over the last 6-8 months, and so hopefully we are able to supply when this demand comes up again. So, but it's very, very difficult to say when exactly.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. That's all from my side.
Thanks.
Thank you. Participants are requested to please press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Yash Agarwal from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. So my first question is on EMOS. What is the revenue split between retrofitting and, the assembling of the new kits for EMOS? What is the revenue split?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I would say it's approximately 35 to 40%, 30% on retrofits and the balance is kits, but we can get back to you with exact numbers.
So where is the order book stronger for you now? Is it more of the assembling bit where it is stronger, or yet it's the same mix going forward also you would expect?
I think we expect the same mix going forward. We have not been saying no to any type of work that comes. So while the larger volumes will be with the kit supplies to the OEMs, obviously because we don't do the actual retrofitting in our plants, therefore we are able to produce more and sell more. The volumes come from there. But these 1 off, 2 off, 10 off, 15 off retrofits that do come do add to top line as well as bottom line. So we continue to do those. So I would say the same kind of split will continue.
Sure. And EMOS is yet slightly EBITDA negative. I see a minus 1 crore EBITDA in the presentation. So what is the outlook going forward on the EBITDA margin front? While the order book continues to be robust for 2 years, but where do you see the EBITDA settling? Would it become positive anytime soon?
Yeah, the EBITDA for last year and this last quarter was negative, predominantly because of some exceptional write-offs that we took. Our finance team can provide more details of those over email. But these are exceptional items that were cleaned off from the balance sheet. But at an operating level, the company is profitable.
Sure. So what sort of margins are you having in that in EMOS, the entity?
At an 8 to 10% EBITDA margin, roughly, at this point.
Oh, sure. And, you spoke about the semiconductor issue in the standalone entity. How is the situation currently? As in, are our plants producing at 60-65%, or it's becoming worse, or is it becoming better week by week? What is your assessment?
Hard to say whether it's getting better or worse. I think we would like to believe that we're at the worst of it at this point of time, and things should look up from here on. But again, this is public news that a lot of OEMs across the world have had shut down plants entirely for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks in the month of June, July, August. And this has certainly impacted supply chains. So we were only hoping that things get better for the OEMs in terms of sourcing the chips, and it gets, this whole issue gets better from here on out.
Sure. All right. Done. Thank you so much, Karan. Yeah. All the best. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shagun Jain, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Karan, I have a couple of more questions. One is the camshaft business is generating approximately 80 to 100 crores of cash every year, right? So as far as I know, till recently you have been deploying this cash in supporting your subsidiaries and also for the acquisition. So which I believe has stabilized to some extent. Is there a thought process on returning some amount of cash to the shareholders? Point number one. Point number two is we know that camshaft business, you have a little long-term view in terms of camshaft business, at least till the year 2030-35, that this will continue to be there. But your experience and expertise developed in the precision engineering space, is there a thought process of slowly and steadily moving away from the camshaft business per se and developing other precision components for automobiles in the years to come, so that we de-risk the standalone company completely? If there's a wave of EV which happens, you never know how things turn out, right? A tipping point comes and all of a sudden, the mass adoption starts happening. And then we see that all of a sudden the order book goes down completely, and we face a problem of overcapacity and not de-risking this business. Second, the third question is from EMOS point of view. You have consistently mentioned that you are looking at the European market. Is there some thought process on the North American markets like the US and Canada, There also a lot of players have started coming in there. And further, is there any thought process on accessing the capital markets out of out of the US, which will provide you a large pool of capital to expand this particular business in the North American markets, and obviously moving to the other parts of the developed world like Japan and Australia and all those places as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let me answer. Your first question was regarding cash generated at CCL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. We are. I think we already have discussed this in the past that we are essentially we have a war chest ready for whatever new developments happen in our industry. Whether it is looking at new opportunities for acquisitions, whether it is looking for new developments of products within our company, whether it is investing in new technologies, I think we need to be ready when that time comes to have that war chest ready in the company to say that when that target is hot, we need to be available, we need to have the resources to do it. So I think that's the idea at this point of time. Regarding your second question, which was, sorry, if you can please repeat the second question.
The second question was moving away from camshaft business to other precision components. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question because we are actually at a strategic level definitely looking at this. I think 5 years down the line, we hope that 30 odd% of our business from the standalone company comes from non-camshaft products. The idea obviously would be that we use the existing infrastructure in terms of foundry as well as machine shop, with minimal investments in either process, machinery, etc., to say what are the new type of products that we could add. And at this point of time, we have actually activated that search in looking for these products, which would either be automotive but non-engine dependent, so completely out of the powertrain basically in the automotive side, as well as looking at non-automotive segments such as agri, off-highway, etc., variety of different industries, instrumentation, which are parts that we already do at Memco, growing that kind of business. So certainly looking at this, and we are at the right point right now in 21, where we still have a good runway to kind of develop these products in our existing facilities. That's one. On the EMOS question, North America is not a target market right now. There are a lot of players, like you said, in those markets. The US market especially comes with a lot of regulation, compliance, etc., which is very, very different from what it is in Europe. And our hands are very much full with demand which is there in Europe, and our focus is to execute on this and to fulfill this demand in Europe before we look at new markets. We are already supplying to some of the developed markets, like you said, New Zealand. We have some big customers there which we supply kits to. And I at this point of time, on your last question, it's too early to answer whether we would be looking at capital markets for fundraising at the EMOS level entity, but it's just too early to say that.
Thank you, Karan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to the next question, a reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Sudhir Padiyar and Consult Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Karan, just one follow-up question to something that was asked earlier. You mentioned about an exceptional write-offs, okay, in EMOS, okay, and so are we done with the exceptional write-off, and can we start seeing normalized EBITDA margins starting from this current quarter onwards, or something is yet pending now over there?
No, I think it would be safe to say that these exceptional items were from the last year, from 2020, and some from this quarter, obviously. We should not have any such other exceptional items, but yeah, I think that's fair to say that at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm done with my question for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Akshay, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
This call is now being recorded.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, hi, Karan. Okay, basically 2 questions I wanted to ask. One is,
which product of yours you see in coming future has a great potential for growth, in terms of growth? And the second question is also very simple actually. Is there any on a consolidated level, any debt on PCL? Yeah.
First question, I think all the products in our current portfolio, we do see a lot of growth opportunities, whether it is CAMSAP, whether it is parts at MFP, whether it is our e-mobility product offerings. We see growth opportunities in each one of them, and we intend to grow all of the product segments. So I would not want to point out one or the other. In terms of the other, so sorry, can you repeat your second question?
On a consolidated level, is there any debt on the...
If you look at a net debt, no, there is not any net debt because of the cash reserves at PCL. But yes, there is some debt at Memco, but there is also the same amount of cash reserves at Memco, which is therefore zero. There is some outstanding debt at MFP, which is to the approximate. Mrs. ROE can be will better answer that question. How much debt is at MFP and EMOS? There is no outside debt, but it's PCL which has loaned approximately 60 crore rupees as working capital. But ROE ma'am, if you can just give some.
Yes, sir. In MFP there is one loan, one term loan that is 51.33 crores in MFP. And working capital is there, that is for rupees 20.48 crores.
So we can say around 50. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, and EMOS, in EMOS there is no debt, sir. And as you pointedly write out, current sir, there is no debt in PCL. Only working capital is there.
And that is 21 crore you said, right?
No, in PCL working capital is 30.50 crores.
30.50 crore.
In PCL, in Precision standalone, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And EMOS, there is only 3 crores working capital. There is the amount is very nominal. And in EMOS, there is only working capital is 20.48 crores.
Okay.
MFP, sorry.
Akshayji, if I have to just summarize, if you add all of this debt, including working capital, and take out and balance it with the cash reserves, we're still net debt.
Yeah.
I can understand. Okay. One last question. So you were, I was reading a few of your speeches. You had mentioned that you're looking for some contracts for retrofitting, right? This is one of your subsidiary from Netherlands, am I correct? Ireland, not Netherlands, am I correct?
No, Netherlands, not Ireland.
Netherlands, yeah, Netherlands. So have you got any contracts for retrofitting where you will be converting diesel or petrol vehicle completely into electronic? And you were talking about you had expressed a concern about high capital. Yeah, it is a bit costlier than the cost purchasing, the battery charges were there, you were mentioning in the speech. Have you addressed that? Any new contract you have got? Any light on that? Could you share?
Unfortunately, I'm unable to share any details of future contracts that we have got for the retrofits in India. But needless to say that yes, we do have a lot of new business for retrofits as well as kits in the Netherlands entity in EMOS. And that business is growing. So I think I unfortunately can't go beyond that at this point.
Okay, so on the balance sheet of EMOS, just now you have said that you have a loan on the balance sheet of EMOS, but it is an internal. The PCL has given internal loan, right?
Yes.
So is it suffice to say that if we weight reserves and the debt, consolidated level, it's a debt-free company? Just wanted to correct even though you have highlighted.
Yes.
Sure, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amit Desai from Excel. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Karan. This is Amit here. Thank you for the good insights. I just have one question. Regarding your e-mobility business, that is EMOS in Netherlands. You are supplying to some large OEMs. All I'm trying to understand is what is the moat or the competitive advantage that you have currently, and do you think over time this moat will expand?
Yeah, great question. So I think we are tied up with a lot of OEMs. We are also doing retrofits for large fleet owners who repeatedly keep coming back to us with their vehicles for conversions to electric. One of the key factors in looking at EMOS as a supplier for electric drivelines is the vast experience and know-how that we come with. This company has been around for more than 10 years now, and the vehicles that are on the road that have the EMOS technology have driven a total of more than 100 million miles. And that's the amount of data that we own of all of these different vehicles, which helps us in designing that next driveline, coming up with that new technology, providing the most efficient and most reliable drivelines to our customers, which ensures that they have 100% uptime, they don't have issues with maintenance, etc., etc. So that's that vast experience that we come with. The other part of it is that we do not, we actually design and develop every driveline from ground up in our plant. It's not we don't pick up components from here and there and just assemble them together, but rather we develop individual components with the suppliers of these components, design them for the use case of the customer, put it onto the vehicle, and then most importantly, the entire software that runs these components together, which is essentially the nervous system of this whole vehicle, is completely owned by us, developed in-house, and provided to the customer at the very end of the product. So these are some of the things that I think we have an edge to the competition. We have a very good track record with our customers who keep coming back to us, and I think just like is the case with our camshaft business, where the barriers to entry are very high because of, let's say, revalidation or other costs involved for the OEM. In a similar way, when we provide a driveline to a partner of ours, I think we are both sides are invested heavily into this, and we look at this as a long-term arrangement and not for short.
Oh, all right. Okay. Thanks, Karan, for those insights, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants who wishes to ask a question may press star and one now. As there are no further questions from the participants, I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Karan Shah for closing comments.
Thank you very much for all your questions. I hope we've been able to answer most of your queries. We look forward to your participation in the next quarter, and thank you for joining our earnings call, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of Precision Camshaft Limited, that concludes the conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.